Like to call to order the meeting of the Personnel and Administration Committee for Thursday, October 24th, 2024. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone,
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Here.
Alderman Aldridge,
Present.
President Green.
Present.
For present, you have quorum.
Quorum being present, I will entertain a motion on the approval of the minutes from Thursday, October 17th, 2024.
So move.
Is there a
Second.
second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge,
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
4 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustained the motion on the approval of the minutes. We have no board bills or resolutions for review. Instead, we will go to committee discussions, where first we wanted to go through report back from the assistant clerk on kind of workload of executive secretaries and legislative assistants related to job duties and actual workload.
Good morning, Madam President and members of the committee. So we sent out an email to all of the executive secretaries and to the legislative assistants. And we received the responses back. We received feedback from the actual job description, and everything is listed in the Google Drive under, I believe, discussions or reports, but it's in the Google Drive.
Okay. We will, before we'll go into closed session to discuss specific things that I want to make sure that any discussion that we have regarding like specifics of what individuals wrote, we do in closed session. So why don't we actually postpone with this line item? Let's take up the ones that we can do in open session and then go into closed session so we can talk about the specific employee feedback.
Sounds like a plan.
Then with that, I will turn it over to Director Ingracia for item number 2, which is our grievance procedures.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the committee. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Do I need to zoom in at all?
Maybe a little.
Okay. Sorry, my computer is being really wonky today. Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is kind of a first attempt at taking some of the information that we had talked about before with respect to grievance policies. And before I put it into a form, I just wanted to go over with you sort of what I'm thinking to date. And I've looked at the St. Louis City Civil Service Employee Grievance Policy, research best practices in other companies and governments, and kind of came up with a process by which employees are able to first try to informally resolve grievances with other employees or their supervisors, and then go through to the personnel committee, which would be the last place that individuals would be able to go. And then we do have approval from the Department of Human Services to be able to access the Conflict Resolution Center, conflict coaching and mediation for employees at any step of the way. And so basically I would just take a look at this language piece here. Let me know when you're ready for me to scroll, and I'll talk about the columns C and D after.
I guess one question I have is, where did the 20 calendar days come from?
I believe the city does 15 or 20. Most places that I found, either government or private companies, seem to be in between 10 and 20 days. I'm happy to make a change. It just seemed like it gave more time for people to be able to turn something in than typical. But I'm happy to have a conversation about timing.
I'm thinking more longer than shorter. I'm just thinking of, you know, it may take more than 20 days if somebody is trying to like first kind of have the conversation or go to their supervisor. Like it may take more than 20 days before getting it to the personnel committee if they're trying
this
the
would be
mechanisms first.
right. This would just be the original formal grievance. It wouldn't necessarily have already risen to the level of the personnel committee. But happy to add days, and I think there's also the possibility of adding some sort of exemption if there's a permission granted by either the personnel committee or a supervisor.
Any questions or feedback from members of the committee? Alderman Cone?
Thank you, Madam President. I thought we had discussed, generally speaking, these are escalation points, and we should be encouraging people to have direct conversations with their manager so that they're not constantly using the Personnel and Administration Committee or, escalation points. So I feel like the language should, and whether it's with their supervisor or another employee, so that we're not necessarily playing mediators, but encouraging our employees on the, in the department to have those conversations with each other so that we have a collegiate work environment, and we should be empowering them if they do have, issues to first address it with the person that they have the issue with. And then this grievance process should be there in place of if they're not able to resolve those issues during those conversations.
Yes, I agree. This is the formalized grievance process that I was requested to put together for you. I'm happy to also create language outside the formal grievance or complaint process.
Okay, I'm not sure so what I'm saying though is the formal grievance process should reference, we encourage our staff to have conversations with individuals that they might have a grievance with.
It does mention it in a couple of places. I don't know
Okay.
if it's the one I highlighted.
Okay, sorry, I'm like zoomed in to try and read it, and then like
Yeah, I can read it to you. So there's one part that says, unless a conflict is with a direct supervisor, an employee should first discuss any workplace problems with them. It also says if an employee believes an issue has not been resolved by an informal discussion, with a supervisor, the next step is a formal grievance or complaint process.
Okay.
Any
Okay.
further questions?
I'm happy to scroll down to if you've had an opportunity to read what's on the screen.
Yeah, go ahead and scroll down. Any further questions? Comments? If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve the grievance complaint process and putting that formally into the employee handbook.
Madam President, is it possible for us to just like soak this in for a minute and maybe vote on this next week?
Yeah, we can do that if that's what you would like to do.
Okay.
I'll be sure
That would be my preference, but I'll defer to the rest of the committee as well.
I'm happy to share this spreadsheet with the members of the committee also.
Okay, if you could do that, and then we will plan to take a vote on it next week. And if you have any feedback in the process, please get that to Director Ingracia. The next item on the agenda is reviewing the proposed employee performance improvement plan.
Thank you, Madam President. So this is a more formalized way than the city civil service employees undertake. I've created a form again using sort of what the civil service employees are using, investigating best practices. And if this looks okay to the committee, I can put it into a form and we can incorporate it into the employee handbook.
Okay, I'm trying to, a performance improvement plan is designed to help an employee be successful in their job by creating a formalized list of expectations, supports, and a timeline to align their performance more closely with requirements and qualifications outlined in their job description, employee handbook, and any goals set.
And then I'll scroll down. What's written in this column B is just like an example of a possible issue that an employee could have. So you had an idea about what the items in column A were referring to.
So the impetus for an employee improvement plan would be kind of a repeated violation of something that is in the employee handbook.
Right. And if you remember from the performance review piece that we reviewed last week, if you have the lowest rating during a performance review, you're required to go through the performance improvement plan process.
Okay. There any questions or comments from members of the committee?
I would just echo, I guess, before we accept this, and I know we've really been diving in on the actual evaluation. I think this is a good step also to, like you say, if employees are ranked low, to be able to have a review plan, but maybe also make this part of the vote for next week, since it's kind of the first time seeing it today.
Okay. We can vote on it next week, and if there's any comments on it, if you could please get those to Director Ingracia, so that we are ready to vote on it next week. And with that, did I just see a hand?
Yeah, that's me, Madam President. I'm just curious too, have we engaged and sorry, Director Ingracia, if you mentioned this, but did we engage with the clerk or assistant clerks with the language here?
I think at last week's meeting, it was requested that the clerk and staff obtain feedback from for PUBOA and Board of Aldermen staff on the current process. And so I'll be sure to share this with them as well, so that we can do the same thing we're doing next week on performance review and grievance process.
That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Sure thing.
All right, with that, in order to discuss item number 1 and item number
First, so are we not, I thought this week we were going to be discussing the evaluation. I think there was some outstanding questions that the director was going to fix, but I thought we was going to take up the evaluation process we've been talking about for a few weeks.
that is not on the agenda for today. I think that is supposed to be at next week's. I think we were giving 2 weeks to update that evaluation.
Yeah, I think also because these pieces all sort of work hand in hand. So until we have some pieces of it finalized, we're not going to be able to get the final vote on the performance review form. But we're close.
Okay.
So with that, to do item number 1 and item number 4, we need to go into closed session. So I will entertain a motion that this meeting of the Board of Aldermen's Personnel and Administration Committee be closed to the public under provision 610.0213 and 610.022 in order to permit the members of the committee to discuss matters related to hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting of employees of the Board of Aldermen.
So move.
There a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge,
Aye.
President Green,
Aye.
4 aye votes.
If we could please be placed in closed session. All right, are there any announcements from any members of the committee? Seeing none, all members are present, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.